Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Edinger with Events and Weddings of Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh wedding planner and your luxury event concierge. And I am so lucky today to have Maya Elaine Photography in the house. Maya, will you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your photography, please?
Thanks so much for the introduction, Tonya. I'm really happy to be here with you today. So my name is Maya Elaine, and I am a non-binary and queer wedding photographer in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And basically what that means is I don't really have a male or female gender identity. I'm somewhere in the middle. It's a different identity for everyone who identifies with it, but I figured I'd explain that since a lot of people haven't encountered it before. And queer just means that I'm part of the LGBTQ plus community. And I love serving couples both in and outside of that community. I really focus on non-traditional weddings and weddings that have some sort of like a bit of a fun element, whether that has to do with the size, the shape, the cultural background, or anything about it. So really just any kind of wedding that's got something a little different going on.
That's where you and I are connecting in a great way, because at Weddings and Events of Pittsburgh, we believe in creating an experience for our couples or guests included, and making sure that everyone is having a uniquely different time that's not traditional. So tell us a little bit more about what your pronouns are.
Thank you for asking. So my pronouns are they, them. And what that means is basically when someone is addressing me, they might say something like, Maya is really cool. They just taught me how to use pronouns. Tonya, what are your pronouns?
I think it's she and her.
Yes, thank you for sharing. So yes. I might say when talking about Tonya is the best wedding planner. She really understands all the details and the important aspects that go into everyone's special day. So it's just that easy. It's just a different form of she, her, he, him, they, them. And I like it when people try to use it, even if they're not familiar with it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for sharing and educating us, because we are all about education, and you always want to be learning. That's the cutting edge of any business that you're in, including life. So tell us a little bit about what pronouns have to do with the wedding industry itself.
So the wedding industry is a lot more LGBTQ plus friendly now than it was a couple years ago, but there's a lot of room for improvement still. And as someone who has been planning a wedding myself recently, I've seen this a lot where when interacting with different vendors or trying to find information, there's a lot of gendered and heteronormative assumptions in the wedding industry. A lot of this comes through in language. You see it whenever reaching out to vendors or looking on information pages. You see the words bride and groom everywhere. And what that does is it assumes that each couple is a bride and a groom, which isn't always the case. A couple could be two brides, two grooms. It could be two grooms and a bride. It could be people like me that don't identify with either of those labels. So to create a more friendly and welcoming environment, there's a lot of thought that could be put into the language we use within our industry and how that affects the people that we're trying to serve.
I know when I was first working with my very first lesbian couple, it was when those marriages were just being accepted and the law had passed, and they were so excited, but they were also both afraid of their jobs finding out. So we did everything very low key, and they were very kind to me because I didn't know how to address them. And that is a common problem, because like I noticed through all of my contracts and everything, it was bridegroom, bridegroom, bridegroom. And so I changed that to client A, client B, just on them teaching me how to speak better, to be more inclusive. And they just were very kind to me, like just helping me to understand that as a whole. So I appreciated that.
That's awesome. And that's exactly what we all have to do as vendors, is when we're approaching something and like, hey, the model I'm currently using doesn't fit. Let's adjust this and make it more inclusive for everybody.
Yeah, and it made it easier. And they just, like I said, they were very kind about it, but it was a good learning experience for me and a way for me to grow. So I appreciate that. So on that, again, back to education and learning, can you tell us what are some ways that vendors can be more inclusive?
So I could talk for hours on this. There's a lot of work that can be done. There's a lot of work I still need to do, and it's not all easy work either. But something simple and some place to start is just auditing your language, like going through not just your contracts, but your website, your marketing materials, anything that's client facing, client portals, questionnaires, client gifts, and making sure that there's none of that assumption, gendered or otherwise, like no bridegroom, no Mr. Miss. That one gets me a lot because I don't use Mr. Miss. I actually use MX, which is pronounced mix, as my title. And so when I see the Mr. Miss, I'm like, who's that? Not me. But anyway, so just going through and editing language, checking out social media posts, and over time it'll become more and more normal. So start with language. Step one, start there. And the rest will start to come over time.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. We can all be growing. All right. You mentioned a lot of your couples are interested in non-traditional weddings. Can you explain a little bit more what that means to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I say non-traditional weddings, I just mean that with the ongoing pandemic and the change in generation and the change in times, the traditional American wedding doesn't fit everybody anymore. It's not that it's bad. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just that we're seeing more and more couples like myself and people that I know and am friends with who it doesn't fit. There's a lot of things that aren't quite right. And so what non-traditional means for my clients can really be on a big spectrum. It can mean everything from there's just one or two little traditions that just aren't quite a good fit. Like maybe the parents walking down the aisle kind of thing just doesn't fit with your family dynamic or something. So we get rid of it and do something a little bit different. And otherwise the day proceeds much like you would expect a wedding to. But on the other end, non-traditional can mean something totally different. I do a lot of photography for elopements that are just completely like all rules out the window. And they're always so much fun. It can be something as crazy as like going to like a Waffle House and having lunch and taking pictures there, and that being part of your big day in some way. Or I do a lot of park elopements where we find like a really cute spot in a place that's meaningful. Maybe this is where you had like a first date or a picnic or something, and we just go out and make it really special. So non-traditional can mean a lot of different things. It really is like a spectrum from just a little bit of changes to completely overhauling the whole wedding process.
Oh, I totally love that. That's mine. I like, let's put tables in a different way. Let's look at the logistics in a different way. And anytime I can do that and put a spin on it, and it's like, oh, well, that's never been done before. Well, yep, that's me then. That's my jam.
And it always turns out so fun, doesn't it?
Oh, it totally does. One of my favorite events was I kept being told like, we can't drape the gateway clipper. We can't drape the gateway clipper. And I'm like, but my client wants the gateway clipper draped in this wedding white drape so that it looks more new, more up to date. And we just ran into so many problems, with like the size of the boat, the ceiling, and different things like that. But my team and I just kept working through. And, in the end, we ended up draping the gateway clipper, and it was fantastic. It made me
so gosh. Happy. I want to see that. That would be so cool.
Oh yeah. I'll have to share pictures.
Please
with you. Oh, it was a fun time, but like, just not that, but like other things too. Whenever you're going through your wedding and you plan it a specific way, remembering that, without a planner, you may run out of time for all the things that you want to do. But when you have a planner, those things then someone is contacting you like, hey, do you still want to cut the cake now? Or do you want to move it up because dinner's running late? Let's do it during dinner. And then that way we can still get it done, but being flexible as well. So.
Yeah, it's all about flexibility in the end. And I think it makes the day not just more special, but more interesting for everybody. So
I think you remember it better too when you're flexible and willing to bend a little bit instead of having things like already set. I mean, yes, you do have them set, but being flexible to move them around a little bit. They'll still happen, just not in the particular order you needed.
Exactly.
So tell us where some of your favorite weddings to photograph are.
Well, I love kind of every sort of wedding. My favorite type of wedding are multicultural weddings. And that's like any kind of wedding where you have some sort of a mixed cultural background. And me and my partner are actually like this, like we come from different cultural backgrounds. So it's really fun because anytime you have a wedding like that, you have this conversation point where you're like, how can we honor both of our traditions in both of our families in a way that's like a little bit different, since it's not one or the other. And sometimes for some couples, this looks like having two separate events, one for like each side of the family, or sometimes this is having like one event and just having different traditions to really pull together to make something super unique. And I really love weddings like that, because you end up learning a lot about everyone involved, and you also end up seeing how different things can blend really beautifully together.
Oh, that sounds so pretty. I'm excited to see what you do for your wedding.
Thanks.
Let's see. As a wedding photographer, can you tell us a few of your top venue choices?
So just based on personal opinion alone, I love anything that's like out. I'm a big nature person. Like, I love the outdoors. So anything with a good outdoor spot, anything with like trees, forests, give me mountaintops, give me rivers, give me anything outside. But as far as venues go, I really just love any venue that has some kind of a sustainability mission. I'm a big fan of trying to reduce waste and general like harm to the environment in the wedding industry, because it is a really wasteful industry. Any venue that has some sort of like reducing plastic use, or some sort of trying to use local produce or local flowers, or work with local florists in some way. I really love venues that are trying to do something to make the world a little bit better, because I'm a leave no trace photographer. And what that means is whenever I go into a outdoor space, that I always leave it exactly as I found it. So we don't use any kind of smoke bombs or like plastic-based confettis or anything that could cause damage to the environment, because that's not great. We do that to those places and they're not going to be there for us to use and take beautiful photos in. So I like seeing it when other vendors do those things as well.
Oh, I love that. I am totally a fan of real plates, real silverware.
Yes, and they look better too.
They totally do. They totally do. So one last question for you. What is it like working with a planner? When you work with a planner, how does that help you to stay in the zone, or what all does that produce for you as a photographer?
From a photographer's perspective, having a planner is so important. It's really like honestly one of the best things you can do, because what ends up happening whenever couples don't have a planner is often a lot of the planning ends up falling back on me, which is, it's whatever. I like doing it, but I'm a photographer, not a planner. And I can produce a better quality content, better quality images whenever I'm focused on what I'm supposed to be doing, which is taking pictures. And whenever there's a really competent planner involved, they can keep the timeline on track. They can keep things moving. They can give me heads up when things change and I don't realize it, so I don't miss something. And overall, the day just ends up being more cohesive and more well put together. It's pretty essential to have a planner, in my opinion.
Oh, I appreciate that, because I always say like photography is one of the most important things that you pick, because together, like I don't have my wedding pictures, and we've been married for almost 30 years. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know what happened to them, and my mother's in heaven, so I'm not sure where they're at, but I know I don't have them. But I will say, thank goodness we had the fortitude, my mom had the fortitude to get an album, because I at least have that one album. Mm-hmm. And I know albums are kind of out the door now. They're not, the big thing, but I love my album. I look at my album often. When my husband and I have an argument or disagreement, I look at that album and I feel the feels, I get the emotions. And I don't think it's the same when you're like, oh, I just want the raw files, or just send me a quick video link or a link to my pictures. Yeah, that's it. To me, that's very sterile. So and I from not having my pictures, a photographer is one of the main things that I push as a vendor, because to me, like, I don't know what I would do without that book. I don't know what I would do without my album. And I try to always tell people, please consider getting an album, because you will thank yourself later. If your computer breaks, if you can't get to them, whatever happens, at least printing out some of them into a book that you have handy, because it's not just, I don't know, I like bragging too. Sometimes I like showing my brag book, like, I know, like, back in the 90s when we got married, dresses totally look different than what they do today. But
oh yeah, they did.
the style, everything. But you know, it's like these were our friends at the time. This was our family. You know, some of those people aren't around anymore. And in our album tells our whole love story. It's pictures of me getting ready with both my grandmothers who are no longer here. My mom's in there. Then we go to the church. I'm walking down the aisle with my dad. You know, it's this complete story. And then I see the party at the end. And then my husband and I are kissing in a heart at the end.
Oh, that's so cute.
And so like, to me, like, I don't know, like, I wish we would kind of get back to that because I think the album is all important. So I don't know, maybe I'm a little off there, but to me, I'm glad I at least have that because I don't have those pictures. So.
Well, definitely reach out to me afterwards. I can help you digitize them. I have equipment that can take them so you have extra copies in case anything ever happens to that.
Oh my goodness, that would be fantastic because they are almost 30 years old.
Yeah, definitely. I would want to get that somewhere safe. We have backup copies of it. I would hate for that to ever go away.
Oh, that's great. That's a great other thing that you do. So tell us a little bit about that too, because you know, like, what if we did have like pictures of our grandparents and now they're no longer with us? And okay, yeah, we're married, but you're still a photographer. So how do we get a hold of you and go about asking you for this? What is that called? Is that
I offer
a book or what is that called?
I offer all kinds of different services related to restoration of old photos and also digitization of old photos. So I actually have the ability to take damaged old photos and repair them and then redeliver them in a digital format again. So you have them safe, or just digitizing ones that you only have in a physical format. I do those on individual quote by quote basis because it really depends on the complexity and how many photos that need to exist. So I don't have like an overarching page with information about that yet, but that is something that I offer, and it's very, very special.
Yes, it would be, because I have pictures of my grandmother modeling, and I think that would be nice to get digitized. I think my whole family would absolutely love that. Thank you. This has been so informative.
Oh, I'm glad to help. Yeah, I'm always full of information about everything. I'm kind of like, I never stop talking, so it's very important that I share it somewhere.
I feel like I could talk to you all day about photography.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, you've been extremely helpful. So Maya has been helpful. They have educated us today, and I hope you all appreciate that. And so let's get your info, even though we're going to put it below. Let's just put it at the end. If you want to say your number really slow and your email, and then say your number one last time and your website, whatever you feel comfortable, just say it nice and slow so everybody can get it.
Absolutely. So you can find all of my information related to wedding photography, couples photography, and everything at www.mayaelaine.com. That's MAYAELAINE.com. My phone number is 412-651-8626. And if you are an LGBTQ plus couple or interested in non-traditional weddings, you should also check out my Facebook group, which is the LGBTQ plus wedding pod. It is pretty new, but I'm really excited for what the future holds for it. Oh, and then all my socials are at Elaine, which is MORYLAINE. So find me anywhere, say hi. I love talking to people, so reach out, please.
Oh, I'm excited to find out more about this pod.
Yeah, it's something new. It's not fully launched yet, but I'm really excited, and I want to start like letting people in so I really want to build a nice community space where people who are getting married and planning weddings and people who have been married and have been through the process can really share information in a welcoming and inclusive and affirming environment. So that's what it's going to be.
Oh, I love that. This has been so fantastic. I appreciate your time, Maya. This is Tonya Edinger, making magic for you.